Hello everybody, this is Dr. Samaah Imam. Today we are going to discuss lecture number 3 in which we are going to talk about several words. Now the first word that we are going to discuss together is action. Now this word, though it seems very simple and easy to translate, but we have to be aware of the different meanings and the different implications of the word. Now let's have a look at it. It's on page 32 in the book. Now action. Okay, the first sentence is the time has come for action. آن أوان الجد أو حان وقت العمل الجاد. Okay. Sentence number 2, you cannot sit idly when your brothers are fighting one another. You must take action. لا يجوز أن تقف مكتوف الأيدي وإخوتك يتقاتلون بل عليك أن تتدخل. So here you must take action معناها عليك أن تتدخل وتقوم بعمل ما. Never mind his testimonials. This is number 3. Judge him by his actions. لا تكترث بشهادات التزكية التي يحملها بل احكم عليه من تصرفاته. So here action would mean تصرفات أو سلوك. وطبعا testimonials معناها شهادات التزكية أو التوصية. Okay. The ministerial committee submitted a report containing a number of recommendations, but the minister never acted on any of them. Never acted on any of them. ولكنه لم يتخذ أي إجراء بشأن أي منها أو لم ينفذ أي منها. So here to act on. A recommendation, to act on something means to take measures, to do something, يتخذ إجراءات, or to put into force, ينفذ. Okay? So let me remind you of this. To act on recommendations simply means A, to take measures, يتخذ إجراءات, or to put into force, which simply means ينفذ. Okay, now let's see act on recommendations as we see in the yes, this is number 3. Never mind his testimonials, judge him by his actions. احكم عليه من تصرفاته أو سلوكه اللي احنا قلناها. Okay, the ministerial committee submitted a report containing a number of recommendations, but the minister never acted on them. Okay, لم يتخذ أي إجراء or لم ينفذ. To act on recommendations يتخذ إجراءات or ينفذ توصيات. Okay, now let's go to sentence number 5. The minister has ordered repairs to be made in the old factory so that it may be brought into action soon. Okay, of course the underlined part, it may be brought into action soon حتى يبدأ تشغيله في القريب العاجل. Okay, so to bring into action, ينفذ. Again, ينفذ. Now the word soon, when we come to translate it, we do not translate it as حالا أو على الفور. ممكن نقول فورا، حال في اللغة العربية، أو في القريب العاجل، شبه جملة. Okay? Now let's see the coming sentence. One rocket fired was enough to put the tank out of action. Okay. لم يطلق سوى صاروخ واحد ولكنه كان كافيا لإعطاب الدبابة أو تعطيل الدبابة أو إيقافها عن العمل. Okay. طيب. One rocket fired was enough to put the tank out of action. Okay. So to put out of action means تعطيل أو إعطاب أو إيقاف. Of course, the word fire as a verb, of course, we all know the noun. Fire as a noun, of course, means fire, nar. Fire as a verb, it has two meanings. Number one, to shoot. يطلق رصاصة. Or معناها اوكي يطرد شخص من العمل. Okay, which is kick out somebody of work. Okay. Now to bring the factory into action حتى يبدأ تشغيله. يبقى here we have soon في القريب العاجل زي ما قلنا شبه جملة. To put the tank out of action تعطيل إعطاب أو إيقاف الدبابة. Okay. So compare this to put into action is the opposite اللي هي تشغيل is the opposite of to put out. تعطيل أو إيقاف. And of course both of them are phrasal verbs. You remember a phrasal verb. What's a phrasal verb? Verb plus preposition. And each time we change the preposition, the meaning of the verb changes. Okay? Example, look into معناها يبحث. Look at يبحث فيه study يعني or examine. Look at it means to look. ينظر. Look after معناها to take care of someone, of somebody. يرعى also it means look like. يشبه. Okay, now let's go back to our work. To put the commission into action, an executive order was required. لم تستطع اللجنة مزاولة نشاطها. Okay, so to put the commission into action it means لأنها كانت تنتظر صدور القرار التنفيذي. لازم to put the commission into action مزاولة العمل أو النشاط للجنة. Okay, and remember that the word لجنة, كلمة لجنة, there are several words for it. Example, committee, commission, panel, board. Okay, so there are several meanings for the words, which we'll talk about later. Okay. The task force, number 8, sentence number 8. Remember that all the sentences we are going to discuss together, you are asked to study them well because they will You will see them in the exam. They will come in the exam. Okay? Some sentences will be deleted. Okay? The task force was set in action as soon as the aircraft landed in Pristina. The task force was set in action. It means بدأ فريق المهمات عمله. So to set in action, to set in action means to start working. Okay? فور هبوط الطائرة في مدينة برشتينا. Okay. The commander called his men into action when the enemy violated the ceasefire. To call into action دعا القائد رجاله إلى الهجوم. Okay. When the enemy عندما انتهك الأعداء وقف إطلاق النار. Of course we all know the word ceasefire, which means وقف إطلاق النار. Okay. To call his men into action, I guess it was lost. Okay. To call into action يدعو إلى العمل أو الهجوم. Of course this has to do according to the context. Okay. All right. Number 10, the landlord brought an action against the tenant. Yes. Okay. Well, who turned his ground floor flat into a supermarket. رفع مالك العقار قضية على الساكن الذي حول شقته في التي تقع في الطابق الأرضي إلى سوبر ماركت. يبقى هنا to bring an action against someone. Someone brought an action against someone. رفع قضية على. So here we have a legal meaning. Okay? Okay. So far, I'll sum up the different meanings of the word action. Okay. So the different meanings of action in the different contexts. Action. Okay. Number 1. اتخاذ إجراء سلوك أو تصرف. No, one عمل جاد. تنفيذ أو تشغيل. His actions. Take an action. Action وحدها. Put out of action. This is number 5. تعطيل or إيقاف. Call into action. يدعو إلى العمل أو الهجوم as we have in the sentence. Bring an action against. يرفع قضية. Okay? Okay. accessibility to cheap feedstock. Okay, let's not talk about this sentence. It's more or less a very long one, and it would cause you some confusion. So what really is important for us on dealing with this sentence is two words only, which is accessibility and actionable. Accessibility means انتفاع, حق الانتفاع, and actionable. Now this is an adjective taken from the word action, which means, and when you translate it, if you find it, when you find it, you have to translate this word, only word actionable, as مخالفة تستدعي رفع دعوى قضائية. So you see, one word only, it could be translated into from the SL, which is English in our case, into the TL, which is Arabic. It could be translated as a whole phrase or statement. Okay? Now let's go back to this. We are warned not to resort to any direct actionable interference with the GATT 1994 trading system, for the consequences may be grave for our own trade, not out, for our own trade. Okay? Okay, so here, any direct actionable interference, with the GATT 1994 trading system, for the consequences may be grave for our, not out. This is a misprint. Own trade. Okay. فقد يعرضنا ذلك لرفع الدعوى القضائية ضدنا. Okay. So actionable, مخالفة أو أمر يستدعي الدعوى القضائية. Okay. Now let's have a look at this exercise on page 34. Okay, page 34. Now let's do the sentences together. Okay. Now sentence number 1. The situation has deteriorated in the southern region and demands immediate action. Okay. لقد تدهور الموقف في المنطقة الجنوبية مما يستدعي تدخلا عاجلا. Okay? All right. Now, I'd like to ask you this question. What's the difference between region, area, and zone? Now, all of these three words mean منطقة. Okay? Now, area, it means a piece of land without borders. Okay? منطقة بلا حدود. منطقة, any area. Okay, and this is, of course, it's the very general word, general. Okay? For region, it means an area with specific borders. Like, for instance, the Arab region, which we all know it extends from the Atlantic Ocean to the Arab Gulf. As far as zone is concerned, now the word zone means an area or, a limited area for a specific reason. For instance, if we would say a military zone, منطقة عسكرية. Okay? Alright, let's go back to the sentences. So the first sentence: لقد تدهور الموقف في المنطقة الجنوبية مما يستدعي تدخلا عاجلا. Now let's see sentence 2. What is needed is action. Words are of no avail any longer. Now sentence again. What is needed is action. Words are of no avail any longer. إن المطلوب هو اتخاذ إجراء فلم تعد الكلمات مجدية. إن المطلوب هو اتخاذ إجراء فلم تعد الكلمات مجدية. أوكي. Okay. Sentence number 3. NATO's action in the Balkans has been criticized by third world countries. Of course, we know that NATO حلف شمال الأطلنطي. Okay, so here the sentence would be, let's go back to the sentence. NATO's action in the Balkans, and the Balkans, of course, is the Balkans area in the east of Europe, has been criticized by third world countries. انتقدت دول العالم الثالث أعمال وتصرفات حلف الناتو في منطقة البلقان. Okay? The last sentence, which is, can changing a private car into a commercial vehicle be actionable? You remember the word actionable, the adjective actionable? Okay. Let's see its translation. هل يعتبر أو يستدعي تحويل سيارة خاصة إلى مركبة تجارية أو يعتبر أو يعد أوكي أمرا يستدعي رفع دعوى قضائية. And remember that this is a question. Don't forget the question marks, because some people, when they go translating a question, they totally forget about the question mark. Okay, so beware of the difference between a statement, translating a statement, and translating a question. Okay? All right. Now, something I'd like to tell you about, which is okay, something related to the passive voice. Okay, let's discuss something before we move to discuss the word advice. Let's discuss the use of the passive voice. Now, the passive voice exists in both English and in Arabic. It's a feature that appears in both English and in Arabic. However, it is more commonly used in English than in Arabic. Okay. Now, there are two ways to translate the passive voice from English into Arabic. Now, translating passive from English into Arabic. Now, let's have a look at this sentence. The car was stolen. Okay. Number 2, many Iraqis were killed by the American forces. Okay, now what's the difference? In sentence number 1, we don't have the doer of the action. Okay, we don't have the idea of by. Okay, so in this case, in order to translate this English sentence into Arabic, we would turn it also. We would keep it also as passive into Arabic. Okay? Now, if in a sentence we find by plus the doer of the action, in this case it has to be changed into active voice. قتلت القوات الأمريكية الكثير من العراقيين. Okay, so in this case, remember this. If we have in the sentence, if we don't have by plus the doer of the action, the sentence would be changed into Arabic as passive also. Okay, if we have by plus the doer of the action, it has to be transferred into Arabic as مبني للمعلوم. يبقى هنكتب هنا مبني المجهول، هنا مبني للمعلوم. Okay, something else that I'd like you to know about is never use, for instance, قتل قتلت بواسطة أو من خلال. Okay, don't ever use بواسطة أو من خلال. This is unacceptable. أو من قبل in translation. Though it appears in many translations, but this is not acceptable. Okay. All right, now let's move to the other word. Now we have finished discussing the word action with its different meanings in different contexts, and we finished the exercise. Now let's move to discuss the word advice. Okay. Advice. Okay, of course, it's a very nice and a very easy word, and it appears in contexts that are easy for everybody. Now, let's have a look at this. I gave him a few words of advice, a bit of advice, a piece of advice. Okay, all of this means simply أسديت إليه بعض النصائح. a piece of advice, a bit of advice, words of advice. Okay? All right. You won't get well unless you follow your doctor's advice. So, here the meaning of advice has changed a bit. لن تشفى من مرضك إلا إذا اتبعت إرشادات الطبيب. So, advice. Now, I'll write them all together. Advice. Now, the first meaning is نصيحة. Number 2, إرشادات, the doctor's advice. It means the instructions of the doctor. What else? If you take my advice and study hard, you will pass the examination. إذا استمعت لنصحي واجتهدت في الدرس فسوف تنجح في الامتحان. Okay, so it's again نصيحة أو نصائح. Or advice, إرشادات طبيب أو معلم أو والد. For instance, the child followed her mother's advice. Okay? All right. To take an advice, يستمع لنصح. Okay. Yes. Now we are going to discuss something which is very important, how to translate the if word in its 3 cases. Now it's very important. Yes, I was just going to tell you about this. If you take my advice and study hard, you will pass the exam. Okay. إذا, when could I use, how could I translate if from English into Arabic? So, translating the if rule. Okay, now let's see this. It's all in here. Okay, if you study hard, you will pass the exam. إذا اجتهدت في دراستك فسوف تنجح في الامتحان. So, here, in the first case, or in case 1, we have if with the verb, the first verb in the present simple, okay, and the other part of the sentence is will plus the infinitive. So in this case we would be translating it as إذا. Now we are going to talk about the second case for translating the if rule, the second case for if. If you studied hard, you would pass the exam. إن اجتهدت في دراستك فسوف تنجح في الامتحان. Now let's have a look at this together. So the second case for if we have the verb in the past simple, and the second part of the if rule, we have would plus the infinitive. So in this case, if would be translated as in. Okay? So for the first case, if you back to our sentences, if you study and will, so this is present simple and will plus the infinitive, إذا. Okay? In the second case, which deals with the past, a verb in the past simple having would plus the infinitive, it would be translated into Arabic as in. Okay? إن اجتهدت في دراستك. As far as case number 3, and just to remind you that in case number 1, when we use the present simple and will plus the infinitive, in this case, it's very much possible for something to happen. It's very much possible and it's very much easy to happen. Okay? If you study hard, you will pass. Okay? In the second case, when we use the past simple plus and would plus the infinitive, it means something that is difficult to happen. It might happen, but it's difficult for it to happen. Or if you are expecting imagining something that would happen. If you studied hard, you would pass the exam. Now the third case for the if rule is if you had studied hard, you would have passed the exam. لو أنك اجتهدت في الدرس لكنت قد نجحت في الامتحان. Now let's see case number 3. It's لو. Okay, we have verb in the present perfect. Sorry, it's past perfect. Past perfect. And the other verb is would plus have plus the past participle. Okay, in this case, the third case in English, for the if rule in English, it means something that is very much difficult to happen. Because if you have done this, there are results. It's here, the if rule discusses results, something built on something else. So if you say, because the first part of the sentence, okay, if you had studied hard, which means that he did not study hard, you would have passed the exam. So he couldn't pass the exam because he hadn't studied hard. Okay, لو أنك اجتهدت في الدرس لكنت قد نجحت في الامتحان. Okay, so beware of this. It's very important to bear in mind the if rule in translation from English into Arabic. Now let's move to sentence number 4. Most presidents today have specialized advisors who play a major role in policy making. So again, now here an advisor, which is a noun derived from the word advice or the verb advise, it means مستشار. So this is another meaning taken from the word advice. يستعين معظم الرؤساء في هذه الأيام بمستشارين متخصصين ينهضون بدور رئيسي في رسم السياسات العامة. Specialized. Okay, specialized means an expert in a certain field. Okay. Again, another sentence discussing presidential advisors may not take part in decision making, but they make the taking of right decisions possible. قد لا يشارك مستشار رئيس الجمهورية في اتخاذ القرارات، ولكن عملهم يساعد على اتخاذ القرارات المناسبة. So this is again a sentence dealing with the meaning of the word advisor. مستشار سياسي أو تعليمي. Okay. Now, it's very important to consider this. The word مستشار. Again, just like the word لجنة, there are different meanings or different words dealing with the word having the same meaning of مستشار. Now, let's have a look at them. Okay, مستشار. For instance, of course, we know about the political one. Like, you know, Dr. Osama al-Baz was once the president's advisor in Egypt. Okay? Also, in universities, especially in Europe and in the US, when someone starts joining a university, there is a guide, someone whose job is to guide the students about the available courses, and what are really their needs, what are the best courses that suit their needs. So advisor could be used in political context or in an educational context. Now another word for mustashar is the word chancellor. Chancellor, this is a political position. Like, for instance, we have the German chancellor. This is a political position that is equal to the prime minister. And we have some countries around the world have this position, like for instance in Germany. Okay, in Germany, Mrs. Angela Merkel is the German Chancellor. She is similar to our Prime Minister. Okay? All right. Another word which is consultant. Okay. Now, consultant مستشار in the sense that it's related to someone who is experienced in a certain field. So, when there is a problem, for instance, an economic problem, a legal problem, okay, they consult someone who has great experience in that field and they ask him or her for their opinions. Okay. تطلق عامة على كبار الخبراء لإبداء المشورة في موضوع محدد ولفترة قصيرة. Okay. And sometimes we have in great companies and in great institutions we have consultants. For instance, we have an engineering consultant, a legal consultant. Okay. Now, counselor means مستشار. It's a diplomatic position in this case. Okay. So again, the word مستشار. For the word مستشار, we have advisor, we have chancellor, which is a political position. We have consultant, which means an expert in a certain field, and counselor, which is a diplomatic position. Okay? All right. So far, we in this lecture, we discussed the following items. Let's revise them together. The first thing we did together was discussing the word action with its different meanings. Okay. Then we discussed some of the meanings of the word advice. Okay. Also, we discussed the passive rule, the translation of the passive into English, the if from English into Arabic, and also the if rule, translating the if rule from English into Arabic with its different cases. And finally, we discussed the various meanings of the word مستشار. Okay? All right. Just to sum up what we have been doing together in this lecture, to act on recommendations. Okay. It means, of course, we discussed the word action with its different meanings. To act on recommendations, okay, it means to take measures or to put into force, just to remind you of the important words. Okay. Also, يتخذ إجراءات أو ينفذ. Also, to bring into action, it also means ينفذ. The word soon means فورا أو في القريب العاجل, which is شبه جملة, which is preferable to be used in Arabic, اللي هي كلمة في القريب العاجل. Okay. To put out of action, it means either تعطيل أو إعطاب أو إيقاف. Fire معناها يطلق رصاصة أو يطلق صاروخ. or يطرد شخص من العمل, kick out somebody of work. Okay. Now, to put into action and to put out of action is two opposite words. To put into action means تشغيل. To put out of action means تعطيل أو إيقاف. Okay. Remember the story of the phrasal verbs which we have been discussing together. A verb plus a preposition, and each time we change the verb, the preposition, the meaning of the word changes. And we have so many examples in English dealing with this idea, and beware of them while you are translating, because changing the preposition might change totally the meaning of the word. Okay, now the word lagna, yes, I'd like to discuss with you this part. Lagna, there are several words for lagna. Committee simply means a group of people, a group of people gathered for a certain aim, and this is the general word for lagna. Now commission also, it has the same idea, which is a group of people working in a certain field, especially in UN institutions. Okay, so for instance, the Commission of Refugees, etc. Okay, panel. Okay, I'll give you one word for this. Now, the word panel simply means a group of examiners. For instance, if someone is a candidate for an MA or a PhD, okay, the group of examiners for MA or PhD thesis, okay, لجنة الممتحنين. Okay, board, of course, board اللي هم board of a company. اللي هم أعضاء مجلس إدارة مؤسسة ما. يبقى هنا panel لجنة ممتحنين. Okay, so these are the different meanings of the word committee. So we have committee, which is the very general word. We have commission for a certain purpose, especially in the UN context. It's very much used. Panel لجنة ممتحنين, board, أعضاء مجلس إدارة. Okay, to set in action, it means to start working. يبدأ تشغيل. To call into action, يدعو إلى العمل or يدعو إلى الهجوم, زي the commander called his men into action. And these are the different meanings of the word action. Again, take an action, اتخاذ إجراء. His action, someone's actions, it means سلوك أو تصرف. Put into action, تنفيذ. Put out of action, تعطيل. Call into action, which I was just saying or talking about, يدعو إلى العمل. Bring an action against, and this is legal context. Okay, يرفع قضية على شخص. The most important one, which is the word actionable. Actionable, okay, which means مخالفة تستدعي رفع دعوى قضائية. It's the whole thing. You cannot delete any of them. Okay, now we discussed the different meanings of منطقة, region, which is a very general word. It means any piece of land without any borders. Region, it's an area with specific borders, like for instance the Arab region, okay, or the Balkans region, as we have been discussing in the exercise on page 34. Now zone, it's a limited area for a specific reason, like for instance a military zone or a free zone in economics. Okay, all right. The passive voice, remember again that when we translate a passive voice, okay, from English into Arabic, it's a common feature in English more than in Arabic. We have it in Arabic, but in very limited contexts. Okay, if you are translating from English into Arabic, remember that if we have the passive verb, the passive voice verb only without the door of the action, so it should be, you have to make it into Arabic as مبني للمجهول also. But if we have it, the passive voice verb plus by, which is by plus the door of the action, you have to turn it into مبني للمعلوم in Arabic. Never use words such as بواسطة أو من قبل أو من خلال. Though you will find it sometimes, but they are not very good in translation. Now the word advice, it means نصيحة or إرشادات, instructions, especially from a superior to an inferior, a doctor to a patient, a parent to a child. To take an advice, it means يستمع لنصح, to listen and try to act on this, to work on this, وينفذ. Now, if you want to translate the if rule, which with its 3 cases, if in the first case would be translated into Arabic as إذا, okay, which is the present simple and the other verb with will plus the infinitive. Now, the second case, it would be changed into in, which is in this case something that is difficult to happen with the past simple and would plus the infinitive. The last case is لو with past perfect, the verb, the main verb, the first verb in the past perfect, and the other with would plus have plus the past participle, which means something impossible. Impossible to happen. Possible but difficult. And this one is easy to happen. Okay? All right. Other meanings for the word advise is advisor, which means mustashar, someone who guides, a guide. Also, we have the word chancellor. Okay, اللي هو political position. Guide. We have consultant, an expert in a specific field. And finally, we have counselor, which is a diplomatic position. All right. I guess that this is the end of our class today. Thank you very much.